stood at the observation deck of the transport vessel, watching the massive hulk of Station Omega-7 grow larger against the star-filled void. The derelict looked like a wounded giant, its twisted metal arms reaching into space like the bones of some prehistoric creature. Scorch marks covered its hull, and several sections had been completely blown away, leaving gaping wounds that exposed the station's skeletal framework to the harsh vacuum of space. The transport captain, a gruff with 4 arms and perpetually worried expression, approached with obvious reluctance. "Are you absolutely certain about this, human? That station has been abandoned for over 3 decades. The life support systems are barely functional, and the automated defenses might still be active." Nodded without taking his eyes off the station. "I've already transferred the credits. The station is mine now, according to galactic salvage laws." He turned to face the captain, his weathered face showing the exhaustion of a man who had seen too much. "I just need somewhere quiet to spend my remaining time." Thus 4 eyes blinked in sequence, a gesture had learned indicated deep concern among their species. "But surely there are better places to retire. Pleasant worlds with medical facilities or even comfortable orbital habitats." Managed a bitter smile. "Captain, when you've spent 40 years fighting in the Terran Defense Corps, watching friends die in battles that most civilians will never even hear about, you don't want pleasant worlds. You want solitude. You want a place where nobody will bother you while you wait for the cancer to finish what the enemy couldn't." The docking procedure took nearly 2 hours. Station Omega-7's automated systems were sluggish and unreliable, responding to commands with the mechanical equivalent of arthritic joints. When the transport finally linked with the station's primary docking bay, the artificial gravity fluctuated wildly, causing everyone on board to grip the nearest stable surface. Gathered his few belongings, a military duffel bag containing clothes, personal effects, and his service medals, a case of emergency rations that would last him several months, and most importantly, his grandfather's toolkit, the same tools that had helped build some of humanity's first space stations over a century ago. "The transport leaves in 6 hours, the captain reminded him as prepared to disembark. "If you change your mind." "I won't," replied firmly, "but thank you for the concern." The airlock hissed open and stepped onto Station Omega-7 for the first time. The air was stale and carried a metallic taste that spoke of recycling systems pushed far beyond their intended. Emergency lighting cast everything in a dim red glow, creating shadows that seemed to move and shift as he walked. Station was enormous. According to the records he had purchased along with the salvage rights, Omega-7 had once housed over 50,000 beings from dozens of different species. It had been a major trading hub in this sector, a neutral ground where even bitter enemies could conduct business under the protection of the Galactic Commerce Authority. That protection had ended 32 years ago when the station found itself in the path of a war between 2 species whose names couldn't even pronounce. Made his way to what had been the station commander's quarters, located in the central hub where the artificial gravity was most stable. The rooms were larger than he needed, but they had independent life support systems and access to the station's main computer core. If he was going to spend his final months here, he wanted to understand what had happened to this place. The commander's quarters were a mess of scattered furniture and personal belongings. Someone had left in a hurry, probably when the first enemy ships appeared on the long-range sensors. Cleared a space near the large viewing portal and set up his bedroll. Outside, the stars wheeled slowly as the station rotated on its axis, a gentle reminder that even in death, the universe continued its ancient dance. His first priority was getting the basic life support system stabilized. The air recycling units were functioning at barely 60% efficiency, and the water reclamation system was throwing error codes that suggested major problems ahead. Had learned enough about station maintenance during his military service to handle basic repairs, and his grandfather's tools were well suited to the work. As he worked his way through the station's maintenance tunnels, began to appreciate the sheer scale of the engineering achievement Omega-7 represented. The station wasn't just large. It was elegantly designed, with redundant systems and modular construction that would have allowed it to grow and adapt to changing needs. Whoever had built this place had been thinking in terms of centuries, not decades. The first day passed quickly as familiarized himself with his new home. He found the station's central computer core and managed to activate the basic historical logs. The records painted a picture of a thriving community that had been destroyed not by enemy action, but by proximity to a war they had no part in. When the fighting started, merchant ships stopped coming. When the refugees started arriving, the station's resources were quickly overwhelmed. When the first wave of enemy scouts appeared, the station's civilian population panicked and fled. The final entry in the commander's log was dated 32 years, 4 months, and 16 days ago. All civilian personnel have been evacuated. Military escort vessels report enemy heavy cruisers approaching. We are abandoning the station. May whatever gods watch over lost causes preserve this place until someone can return to claim it. Ate his dinner while watching the stars through the viewport in the commander's quarters. The emergency rations were flavorless but nutritious, designed to keep someone alive rather than provide any pleasure. He found the blandness strangely appropriate. Everything in his life had become flavorless since the doctors had delivered their verdict 6 months ago. As he prepared for sleep, reflected on the strange turn his life had taken. 3 months ago, he had been Master Sergeant, a decorated veteran with enough commendations to cover a wall. The Terran Defense Corps had offered him a comfortable retirement on Earth, with full medical benefits and a pension that would have allowed him to live comfortably anywhere in human space. Instead, he had liquidated his assets, purchased salvage rights to a derelict station, and traveled to the edge of nowhere to die alone. When he tried to explain his reasoning to himself, it never quite made sense. Perhaps it was simply that after 4 decades of service, he had earned the right to end things on his own terms. The second day began with a series of alarms that jerked awake. The station's computer was reporting a cascade failure in the secondary fusion reactor, which was apparently the only thing providing power to his section of the station. Grabbed his tools and rushed to the reactor chamber, his mind automatically shifting into the crisis management mode that had kept him alive through countless battles. The reactor chamber was a cathedral of technology, with the fusion core suspended in the center like a glowing heart. The diagnostic displays showed exactly what had feared. A catastrophic failure was imminent, probably within the next few hours. If the reactor went offline, he would lose life support, gravity, and the automated systems that were keeping the station's atmosphere from leaking into space. Had never worked on a fusion reactor this large, but the basic principles were the same as the smaller units he had maintained on military vessels. The problem appeared to be in the magnetic containment system, where several key components had degraded beyond their safety margins. Replacement parts were impossible to find, but thought he might be able to jury-rig a solution using materials from other parts of the station. For the next 12 hours, worked with the desperate intensity of a man whose life depended on his success. He cannibalized components from the station's defunct shield generators, rewired control circuits using fiber-optic cables salvaged from the communications array, and performed delicate calibrations using instruments that hadn't been properly maintained in over 3 decades. As the station's chronometer marked the end of his second day aboard Omega-7, finally managed to stabilize the reactor. The containment field strength was back within acceptable parameters, and the power output was steady. He had probably bought himself several more months of life support, assuming nothing else went catastrophically wrong. Was cleaning his tools when the first proximity alarm began to sound. The station's long-range sensors, which he hadn't even realized were still functional, had detected something approaching. According to the display, it was a single vessel, medium-sized, following a direct course toward the station. Felt his heart rate increase as old military instincts kicked in. In his experience, ships that approached abandoned stations usually belonged to pirates, scavengers, or worse. He made his way to the station's security center and managed to activate the external cameras. What he saw made him question his tired eyes. The approaching vessel was unlike anything in the databases he had access to. Its hull was a deep blue-black color that seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it. The ship's configuration was streamlined and organic-looking, more grown than built. Most unsettling of all, it was moving without any visible exhaust or energy signature, gliding through space as silently as a predator stalking its prey. Checked the station's defensive systems and found them completely non-functional. The weapon arrays had been destroyed during the war, and the shield generators he had cannibalized for reactor parts had been offline for years anyway. If the approaching vessel had hostile intentions, there was nothing he could do to stop it. The ship reached the station's perimeter and began a careful survey of the outer hull, tracked its progress on the external cameras, noting the methodical way it examined each docking bay and airlock. This wasn't the behavior of pirates or scavengers. This was someone who knew exactly what they were looking for. After completing its external survey, the mysterious vessel moved to the main docking bay where transport had delivered him just 2 days earlier. The docking procedure was flawless, executed with a precision that spoke of long familiarity with the station's systems. Watched in growing amazement as the ship's airlock aligned perfectly with the station's docking collar and sealed with a soft hiss that he could hear through the station's hull. Grabbed the emergency communicator from the security station and tried to establish contact with the mysterious vessel. Static filled the channel for several long moments before a voice responded. The voice was clearly non-human, with harmonics and undertones that suggested a complex vocal apparatus, but it spoke perfect galactic standard with only a slight accent. Station Omega-7, this is Keeper returning from extended patrol. Please respond, Station Commander. Stared at the communicator for several seconds before finding his voice. I'm afraid there's no station commander anymore. This station was abandoned over 30 years ago. I purchased salvage rights and I'm the current occupant. The silence that followed was so long that wondered if the communication link had failed. When the voice returned, there was something different about it. Something that might have been surprise or sadness or perhaps both. 30 years, the voice repeated slowly. Has it truly been so long? Human, I am requesting permission to board the station. There are matters we must discuss. Looked around the security center, taking in the emergency lighting, the dust-covered control panels, and the general air of abandonment that permeated everything. He thought about his grandfather's toolkit, about the cancer eating away at his insides, and about the strange turn his life had taken in bringing him to this moment. Permission granted, he said. Main airlock 7, I'll meet you there. As made his way through the station's corridors toward the docking bay, he found himself wondering what exactly he had gotten himself into. The voice on the communicator had spoken with the authority of someone who belonged here, someone who knew this station better than ever would. The implications of that were staggering. The being that emerged from the mysterious vessel was nothing like anything had encountered in 4 decades of galactic service. Keeper stood nearly 3 meters tall, with a graceful, elongated form covered in what appeared to be natural armor plates. The creature's head was crowned with sensory organs that moved independently, constantly sampling the air and adjusting to changes in light and sound. Most striking of all were the being's eyes, large, multifaceted gems that seemed to hold depths of intelligence and experience that made feel very young and very small. Human, Keeper said, its voice carrying harmonics that resonated through the docking bay. I am grateful that you maintained the station's life support systems. Without your efforts, much would have been lost. Found himself struggling to form a coherent response. Maintained? I've only been here for 2 days. I just fixed the reactor because I needed it to work. The Keeper's sensory organs focused on with an intensity that was both fascinating and uncomfortable. 2 days. Yet in that time, you accomplished more than the automated systems managed in 30 years. You have a gift for understanding the harmony between organic need and mechanical function. I'm just a retired soldier, protested. I bought this station because I wanted somewhere quiet to spend my final months. Final months? The Keeper's voice carried a note of genuine concern. Are you suffering from some terminal condition? Nodded, suddenly feeling the weight of his mortality more keenly than he had in weeks. Cancer. The doctors gave me 6 months, maybe 8 with treatment. I decided I'd rather die in peace than spend my remaining time in hospitals. Keeper was silent for a long moment, its sensory organs moving in complex patterns that suspected carried meanings he couldn't interpret. When the being spoke again, there was something different in its voice, something that might have been resolve. Human, you have unknowingly placed yourself at the center of a situation that spans centuries. This station is not what it appears to be, and your presence here is no accident. The fact that you were drawn to this place, that you were able to repair critical systems with tools and knowledge that should not have been sufficient for the task, suggests that forces beyond mere chance are at work. Felt a chill that had nothing to do with the station's environmental systems. What are you talking about? I bought salvage rights through a legitimate broker. This is just an abandoned trading station. Station Omega-7 was never just a trading post, the Keeper replied. It is a Guardian station, one of 12 such installations built by my people to monitor and protect this region of space. When the war came, we were forced to evacuate, but we always intended to return. The station has been waiting, and now it seems to have chosen its new guardian. The implications of what Keeper was saying hit like a physical blow. Guardian? I'm not a guardian. I'm a dying man who wanted to be left alone. The station's systems would not have responded to you if you were not suitable, the Keeper explained patiently. The repairs you made to the reactor required not just technical skill, but an intuitive understanding of how the station's living systems function. That understanding cannot be taught human. It can only be recognized and developed. Sank into one of the docking bay's service chairs, feeling overwhelmed by the rapid turn of events. 2 days ago, his biggest concern had been whether the life support systems would last long enough for him to die peacefully. Now he was being told that he had somehow been chosen to become the guardian of an alien monitoring station. "This is insane," he said finally. "Even if what you're saying is true, I'm dying. Cancer doesn't care about alien responsibilities or cosmic destiny or whatever this is supposed to be." Keeper approached slowly, its movements careful and non-threatening. "The Guardian technology my people developed includes sophisticated medical capabilities. The cellular damage you call cancer is well within our ability to repair, if you are willing to accept the responsibilities that come with such healing." Stared at the alien being, his mind reeling with possibilities he had never dared to consider. "You're saying you can cure my cancer?" "I am saying that if you choose to accept the role of guardian, the station itself will cure your cancer as part of the bonding process. You would become something more than purely human, but you would remain fundamentally yourself. The choice, however, must be made freely and with full understanding of its consequences." The docking bay fell silent except for the soft hum of the station's life support systems. Looked around at the technological marvel that surrounded him, thinking about the repairs he had made, the strange sense of rightness he had felt when working with the station's systems, and the inexplicable peace he had found in this supposedly abandoned place. "What exactly does a guardian do?" he asked finally. Keeper's sensory organs shifted in what was beginning to recognize as a gesture of approval. "A guardian maintains the station, monitors the surrounding space for threats to galactic stability, and provides sanctuary to those who have nowhere else to turn. You would be part of a network that has protected this region of space for over 2,000 years. Thought about his 40 years of military service, about the countless times he had put his life on the line to protect people he would never meet. The role of guardian didn't sound all that different from what he had been doing his entire adult life, except that the scope would be larger, and the responsibility would last considerably longer than the few months he had expected to live. "If I say yes," he said slowly, "what happens to my humanity? What happens to—" "You would remain," the Keeper assured him. "The Guardian enhancements complement human capabilities rather than replacing them. You would gain longevity, enhanced healing, and the ability to interface directly with the station's systems, but your personality, your memories, and your essential nature would remain unchanged." Closed his eyes and thought about the strange sequence of events that had brought him to this moment. The discovery of the station's listing in an obscure salvage catalog, the inexplicable urge to purchase it despite having no logical reason to do so, the way the repairs had seemed almost to complete themselves once he understood what needed to be done. Maybe Keeper was right. Maybe there were forces at work that went beyond mere coincidence. Or maybe he was just a dying man grasping at straws, willing to believe anything that offered hope of continued existence. But as he sat in the docking bay of Station Omega-7, surrounded by technology that responded to his touch like a living thing, realized that for the first time in months, he felt genuinely alive. The prospect of death no longer seemed like an escape from pain, but like a waste of potential he was only beginning to understand. "All right," he said, opening his eyes to meet Keeper's multifaceted gaze. "I accept. Tell me what I need to do." The Guardian chamber was located in the deepest part of Station Omega-7, far below the commercial levels where had been living. Keeper led him through maintenance tunnels and service corridors that showed no signs of the damage and neglect that characterized the outer sections of the station. Here, the walls hummed with subtle energy, and the air itself seemed to pulse with life. "The Guardian technology is integrated into the station's very foundation," explained as they walked. "When my people built these installations, They were designed to function as living entities, capable of growth, adaptation, and self-repair. The Guardian serves as the bridge between the station's artificial intelligence and the organic life it protects. Ran his hand along the smooth walls, feeling a barely perceptible vibration beneath his fingertips. This doesn't feel like any technology I've ever encountered. It's almost like touching something alive. That is because, in many ways, it is alive, the Keeper replied. My people learned long ago that purely mechanical systems, no matter how sophisticated, lack the intuitive understanding necessary to protect organic life. The Guardian stations represent a fusion of biological and technological principles that creates something greater than either could achieve alone. They reached a circular chamber that took breath away. The room was enormous, with a domed ceiling that displayed a real-time view of the space surrounding the station. Streams of data flowed across the walls in patterns of light that somehow conveyed meaning even though couldn't read the symbols. At the center of the chamber stood a crystalline structure that pulsed with soft, rhythmic light. This is the heart of the station, said reverently. Here, you will bond with Omega-7 and become its guardian. But first, there are things you must understand about the responsibility you are accepting. The Keeper gestured toward the flowing data streams, and the patterns shifted to display star charts and tactical information. The Guardian network monitors a region of space containing over 400 inhabited systems and more than 50 billion sentient beings. We watch for threats that individual planetary governments cannot detect or counter. Rogue artificial intelligences, incursions, temporal anomalies, and species that seek to expand by consuming other civilizations. Studied the displays, his military training helping him interpret the tactical symbols and threat assessments. This is incredible. How long have you been doing this? The first Guardian station was established over 2,000 years ago, when my people, the first encountered evidence of threats that transcended normal spacetime, explained. We discovered that our galaxy is far more dangerous than most species realize. There are entities that exist between dimensions, feeding on the life energy of entire worlds. There are machine intelligences that spread like viruses, converting everything they encounter into extensions of their own consciousness. And there are ancient powers that view younger species as nothing more than resources to be harvested. The scope of what the Keeper was describing was almost overwhelming. Had fought in battles that seemed enormous at the time, but they were nothing compared to the cosmic-scale threats that the Guardian network apparently faced on a regular basis. Why hasn't anyone else heard about this? Asked. Surely word would have gotten out about threats of this magnitude. Most species are not ready to handle such knowledge, replied sadly. When civilizations learn that their entire existence depends on the protection of hidden guardians, they tend to react poorly. Some become paralyzed by fear, others develop dangerous delusions of their own importance, and a few attempt to seize guardian technology for their own purposes. It is better that most beings live their lives unaware of the dangers we shield them from. Nodded slowly, understanding the wisdom in that approach. During his military service, he had seen how ordinary soldiers reacted when they learned about threats beyond their ability to comprehend or counter. Most handled it well, but some broke under the psychological pressure. What about Earth? He asked. What about humanity? The Keeper's sensory organs shifted in what had learned indicated deep thought. Humanity is an unusual species. Your people have remarkable adaptability and resilience, but also a tendency toward both great nobility and terrible destructiveness. We have been watching Earth for several centuries, trying to determine whether your species will ultimately prove beneficial or harmful to galactic stability. And what have you concluded? That humanity's potential for both good and evil makes you particularly well-suited to serve as guardians, replied. You understand the darkness that exists in all sentient beings, but you also possess the moral courage to fight against it. The fact that you spent your life in service to others, even at great personal cost, demonstrates the kind of character we seek in guardian candidates. Felt a strange mix of pride and apprehension at the Keeper's words. What happened to the previous guardian of this station? Guardian Ash served for over 800 years before choosing to enter the deep sleep, explained. When the war came to this sector, he made the difficult decision to evacuate the civilian population and enter stasis, rather than risk the station's discovery by hostile forces. He intended to awaken when the danger passed, but 30 years is a very short time by standards. We had not realized that the civilian infrastructure had degraded so severely. The implications of what the keeper was saying slowly sank in. "You're telling me that there's still a Guardian in stasis somewhere on this station." "Guardian Ash rests in the deep sleep chamber 2 levels below this one," confirmed. "When you bond with the station, you will have the opportunity to communicate with him and learn from his centuries of experience. The transition from one Guardian to another is rarely so direct, but these are unusual circumstances." Walked closer to the crystalline heart of the station, feeling its pulsing energy like a physical presence. "What exactly does the bonding process involve?" "You will place your hands on the heart and open your mind to the station's consciousness," explained. "The Guardian technology will analyze your biological and psychological makeup, then begin the process of integration. Your cancer will be eliminated, your cellular regeneration enhanced, and your nervous system modified to interface directly with the station's systems." "How long does it take?" "The initial bonding requires approximately 6 hours. The full integration process continues for several weeks as your body adapts to the enhancements. During this time, you will experience expanded awareness, enhanced physical capabilities, and gradually developing psychic sensitivity." Hesitated, suddenly aware that he was about to cross a threshold from which there would be no return. "Will I still be human?" "You will be human-enhanced," the keeper replied. "Your species' fundamental characteristics will not only remain intact but be amplified. Human creativity, adaptability, and moral insight are precisely the qualities that make your people suitable as guardians." Taking a deep breath, approached the crystalline heart. Up close, he could see that it wasn't actually crystal at all, but some kind of organic structure that simply appeared crystalline. Complex patterns flowed through its translucent surface, and he could feel its energy resonating with something deep inside his own body. "Once I do this, there's no going back?" he asked. "The bonding is irreversible," confirmed. "But consider your alternatives. Without intervention, you have perhaps 6 months of painful decline ahead of you. As a guardian, you could have centuries of meaningful service, protecting billions of beings from threats they will never even know existed." Placed his palms against the warm surface of the heart. Immediately, he felt a tingling sensation that spread from his hands throughout his entire body. The chamber around him seemed to fade away, replaced by a vast network of interconnected consciousness that stretched across the galaxy. He could sense the other Guardian stations, each one a bright point of awareness in the cosmic darkness. He felt the presence of their guardians, beings from dozens of different species united in their commitment to protecting life throughout the galaxy. Most overwhelming of all, he sensed the station itself, a vast artificial intelligence that was both incredibly ancient and eternally young. "Welcome," the station's voice spoke directly into his mind. "I have been waiting for you for a very long time." The bonding process was unlike anything could have imagined. He felt the station's consciousness merge with his own, sharing memories that spanned centuries and knowledge that encompassed technologies beyond human understanding. At the same time, his own memories and experiences flowed into the station's awareness, adding the perspective of a human soldier to its vast database of accumulated wisdom. The cancer that had been slowly killing him simply vanished, dissolved at the cellular level by nanotechnology so advanced that it seemed like magic. His organs regenerated, his muscles strengthened, and his nervous system developed new pathways that allowed him to perceive electromagnetic fields, gravitational fluctuations, and the subtle emanations of living beings. When the initial bonding was complete, found himself lying on a platform that had somehow appeared beneath the heart. Keeper was watching him with what he had learned to recognize as approval. "How do you feel?" the keeper asked. Sat up slowly, marveling at the complete absence of the constant pain that had been his companion for the past 6 months. "I feel alive, really alive for the first time in years." He paused, becoming aware of new sensations flooding his consciousness. "I can feel the station. It's like it's part of my body now." "That sensation will intensify over the next few weeks," explained. "Eventually, you will be able to control the station's systems as easily as you move your own limbs. But for now, you should rest and allow your body to complete the initial adaptation." Stood up, surprised by how natural the movement felt despite the profound changes that had just occurred in his body. "I want to meet the previous guardian. Ash, can we wake him up?" The keeper's sensory organs shifted in a pattern was beginning to recognize as concern. Awakening a guardian from deep sleep is not undertaken lightly. The process requires significant energy, and there is always some risk involved. Are you certain this is necessary? I need to understand what I've got myself into, replied. And besides, if he's been asleep for 30 years, he deserves to know what's happened to the sector he was protecting. Considered this for a long moment. Very well, but the awakening must be gradual, and Guardian Ash will need time to adjust to the changes that have occurred during his sleep. The galaxy he awakens to will be very different from the one he left behind. The deep sleep chamber was located in the station's most heavily protected section, behind multiple layers of security systems that responded only to authorized Guardian DNA patterns. As they approached the chamber, could feel the station's anticipation through his new neural interface. The artificial intelligence was clearly eager to reunite with its former Guardian. Guardian Ash lay in a stasis pod that looked more like a work of art than a piece of technology. The pod itself was formed from the same organic crystal as the heart of the station, and complex patterns of light flowed through its structure in rhythm with the sleeping Guardian's vital signs. Ash himself was unlike any being had ever encountered. The former Guardian appeared to be a hybrid of organic and mechanical components, with metallic plates integrated seamlessly into what looked like chitinous armor. His head was crowned with sensory organs similar to those of Keeper, but modified with technological enhancements that pulsed with soft blue light. Guardian Ash belonged to the collective, explained quietly. His people are natural symbionts, capable of forming permanent bonds with technology in ways that most species cannot achieve. He was an excellent choice for Guardian duty. Watched as the Keeper began the awakening process, slowly adjusting the stasis pod's controls to bring Ash back to consciousness. The process took nearly an hour, as various systems came online and began the delicate work of transitioning the sleeping Guardian from stasis to wakefulness. When Ash's eyes finally opened, they glowed with an inner light that reminded of the station's heart. The former Guardian sat up slowly, his mechanical components humming to life as he oriented himself to his surroundings. "Keeper," Ash said, his voice carrying harmonic undertones that suggested a complex vocal apparatus. "How long was I in deep sleep? The evacuation protocols were supposed to awaken me within 1 standard year." "Guardian Ash," replied formally, "you have been in stasis for 31 years, 4 months, and 18 days. The sector situation changed dramatically during your sleep, and new circumstances have arisen that required the appointment of a new Guardian." Ash's glowing eyes focused on with an intensity that was both fascinating and slightly uncomfortable. "A human Guardian? That is unexpected. Your species was barely achieving interstellar travel when I entered deep sleep." Stepped forward, still adjusting to the enhanced awareness that came with his new status. "My name is, I was dying of cancer when I stumbled onto this station. Keeper offered me a choice, death in 6 months or centuries of service as a Guardian." "And you chose service," Ash said, approval evident in his voice. "That speaks well of human character, but tell me, what has happened to the sector I was sworn to protect? What became of the civilian populations we evacuated?" Gestured toward the chamber's display systems, and the walls lit up with star charts and statistical data. "The war ended 12 years after your stasis began. The empire fell to internal revolution, and the hegemony fractured into dozens of smaller nation-states. Most of the refugee populations eventually found new homes, though some were lost during the chaos." Ash studied the displays with growing amazement. 12 years? The projections suggested the conflict would last at least a century. What caused such a rapid resolution? "Humanity," the Keeper replied simply. "Human military advisors and peacekeeping forces helped broker agreements between the warring factions. Your species has a remarkable talent for finding diplomatic solutions to seemingly intractable conflicts." Felt a surge of pride at the Keeper's words, but also a sobering awareness of the responsibility he had accepted. If humanity had played such a crucial role in ending a galactic war, then his appointment as Guardian represented more than just personal salvation. It was a recognition of his species' potential contribution to galactic stability. "Guardian Ash said, I know I have a lot to learn about my new role. Would you be willing to help train me?" The former Guardian's mechanical components hummed softly as he considered the request. The transition from one Guardian to another is usually a gradual process, occurring over decades or even centuries. For you to assume full responsibility after only hours of bonding is unprecedented. Yes, I will help you prepare for what lies ahead. Over the next several hours, Ash shared centuries of experience and wisdom with. He explained the subtle signs that indicated emerging threats, the complex diplomatic protocols for dealing with different species, and the advanced capabilities of the Guardian technology. Most importantly, he helped understand the psychological challenges of Guardian duty. You will live for centuries, watching the beings you protect live and die in what seems like moments, Ash explained. You will make decisions that affect the fate of billions, often based on incomplete information and under extreme time pressure. The responsibility can be overwhelming if you let it consume you. How do you cope with it? Asked. By remembering that you are not responsible for solving every problem in the galaxy, Ash replied. Your job is to identify and counter the threats that no one else can handle. Everything else must be left to the beings you protect, to succeed or fail according to their own choices. As absorbed this wisdom, he became aware of something stirring at the edge of his enhanced consciousness. The station's sensors were detecting something approaching from the outer rim of the system, something that didn't match any known ship design in the galactic databases. We have a visitor, announced, surprised by how naturally the information flowed from the station's sensors into his awareness. Ash immediately focused on the tactical displays, their expressions growing serious as the data streams revealed details about the approaching vessel. The ship was massive, easily 10 times the size of the largest human dreadnought, and its energy signature was unlike anything in the Guardian databases. Unknown configuration, Ash muttered, his mechanical components whirring as he processed the information. Energy patterns suggest technologies at least 1,000 years more advanced than anything currently known. This could be a first contact situation. Felt the station's defensive systems coming online automatically, responding to his unconscious concern about the approaching threat. Weapon arrays that had been dormant for decades suddenly activated, shield generators hummed to life, and the entire station shifted into a heightened state of alertness. Guardian, Keeper said formally, your first test as protector of this sector is about to begin. Unknown vessels of such advanced capability represent either a tremendous opportunity or an existential threat. How do you wish to proceed? Looked at the tactical display, watching the mysterious ship's steady approach towards Station Omega-7. His military training told him to prepare for the worst while hopping for the best, but his new Guardian instincts were picking up something else entirely. The approaching vessel wasn't radiating the aggressive energy patterns typically associated with hostile ships. Instead, there was something almost curious about its approach. Open a communication channel, decided. Let's find out who they are and what they want before we start shooting. Ash nodded approvingly. A wise first decision. Diplomacy should always be the Guardian's first recourse, with force held in reserve for when all other options have been exhausted. The communication array activated, sending a standard first contact greeting toward the approaching vessel. For several long minutes, there was no response. Then, just as was beginning to wonder if the ship's occupants were incapable of communication, a reply came through. The voice that emerged from the speakers was unlike anything any of them had ever heard. It seemed to come from multiple sources at once, creating complex harmonies that conveyed meaning on levels beyond simple language. When it spoke, the words were in perfect galactic standard, but there were undertones that suggested vast intelligence and incredible age. Guardian Station Omega-7, this is the Wanderer's inquiry. We have come seeking knowledge of the new Guardian whose presence we sense aboard your station. It has been many centuries since we last encountered a human who had accepted the Guardian bond. Felt his heart rate spike as the implications of that statement sank in. They know about human guardians? How is that possible? I thought I was the first. Ash's glowing eyes widened with something that might have been awe. Guardian, I believe you are about to learn something that will fundamentally change your understanding of your species' place in the galaxy. The massive ship that called itself the Wanderer's Inquiry approached Station Omega-7 with a grace that its enormous size. As it drew closer, could see through the station's enhanced sensors that the vessel was less built than grown. Its hull formed from what appeared to be living metal that shifted and adapted as he watched. Patterns of light flowed across its surface in complex spirals that suggested both tremendous intelligence and purposes beyond his current understanding. Guardian, the harmonious voice spoke again through the communication system. We request permission to dock with your station. There are matters of great importance that we must discuss, concerning not only your recent transformation but the destiny of your entire species. Exchanged glances with Ash and Keeper, nodding the mixture of excitement and apprehension in their expressions. In his enhanced awareness, he could feel the station itself responding to the approaching vessel with something that might have been recognition. "Permission granted," replied, his voice steadier than he felt. "Main Docking Bay 7 can accommodate vessels of your size." "We are grateful for your hospitality," the voice responded. "We shall arrive in approximately 1 standard hour. Please prepare for the reception of beings whose nature may initially seem disturbing to your recently enhanced perceptions." As the communication ended, turned to his companions. "What do you think they meant by that, and how do they know about other human guardians?" Ash's mechanical components hummed with what had learned to recognize as deep thought. "There are legends among the Guardian Corps about the Wanderers, beings of such advanced evolution that they transcend the normal boundaries of space and time. If this is truly one of their vessels, then we are about to encounter entities that may be older than our entire galactic civilization." Keeper's sensory organs were moving in patterns that indicated profound excitement. "The Wanderers are said to be the original architects of the Guardian Network, the beings who first recognized the need for cosmic-scale protection of organic life. Most scholars believe they are merely myth, stories created to explain the mysterious origins of Guardian technology." "But you don't think they're myths?" observed. "No," the Keeper replied. "My people have records that speak of encounters with beings matching the Wanderer's description, though none have been recorded for over 1,000 years. If they have come here, it is for a reason of tremendous significance." Spent the next hour preparing for the arrival of their mysterious visitors. The station's protocols for receiving unknown entities were surprisingly comprehensive, including specialized atmospheric controls, universal translators, and even gravity adjustment systems to accommodate beings with radically different physiological requirements. As he worked, found himself marveling at how naturally the station's systems responded to his commands. The neural interface created during his Guardian bonding allowed him to control the massive facility as easily as moving his own limbs. He could sense every functional system, every damaged component, every subtle change in the station's status. More than that, he was beginning to understand the station's history through direct connection with its memory banks. He saw flashes of its construction, images of the engineers who had spent decades growing the station from a seed of Guardian technology. He witnessed the thriving community that had flourished here for centuries, the countless diplomatic meetings and trade negotiations that had helped maintain peace throughout the sector. Most poignantly, he experienced Guardian Ash's final days before entering stasis, the agonizing decision to evacuate the civilian population, and the desperate hope that someone would eventually return to claim the station. The depth of dedication and sacrifice that the role of Guardian required was becoming clear in ways that mere explanation could never convey. When the Wanderer's inquiry finally docked with the station, the process was so smooth and precise that barely felt the vibration through the station's structure. The massive vessel aligned perfectly with the docking bay's systems, creating a seamless connection that spoke of technologies far beyond anything in the Guardian databases. The airlock opened to reveal 3 beings that challenged every assumption had ever made about the nature of intelligent life. The Wanderers appeared to be composed of living energy contained within flexible crystalline matrices that shifted and flowed like mercury. They moved without touching the ground, floating gracefully through the air while emanating patterns of light that conveyed meaning in ways enhanced perceptions could somehow understand. The lead being approached with movements that seemed to bend the very fabric of space around it. When it spoke, the words formed directly in his mind rather than through sound. "Guardian of Earth, we greet you and welcome you to the Eternal Watch. I am known as the Seeker of Lost Paths, and my companions are the Keeper of Ancient Memories and the Voice of Future Possibilities. We have traveled far to witness your transformation and to share knowledge that your species will soon require." Struggled to formulate a response to such an overwhelming presence. "Thank you for coming. I have to admit, I'm still trying to understand what I've got myself into. Ash and Keeper have been helpful, but there's clearly a lot I don't know about the Guardian network." "Indeed," the Seeker replied, its crystalline form shifting to what somehow interpreted as amusement. Your transformation represents more than the simple appointment of a new guardian. It marks the beginning of humanity's true emergence as a galactic force, and the fulfillment of prophecies that were made long before your species achieved consciousness. Prophecies? Asked, feeling both excited and apprehensive about the implications. The second wanderer, the keeper of ancient memories, drifted forward. Its communication felt different from the seekers, carrying undertones of vast age and accumulated wisdom. Long ago, when the Guardian Network was first established, we foresaw that a species would arise that possessed the unique combination of traits necessary to serve as the network's ultimate protectors. We called them the Bridge Builders, for they would connect all the scattered races of the galaxy in common cause. "And you think humans are these bridge builders?" asked. "We do not think it," the voice of future possibilities interjected, its mental voice carrying harmonics that suggested multiple parallel thoughts. "We know it. The evidence has been accumulating for centuries. Humans possess an unparalleled ability to understand and empathize with radically different forms of consciousness. Your species can form meaningful alliances with beings as diverse as the logical and the emotional, as cooperative as and as individualistic as the collective." Ash stepped forward, his mechanical components humming with interest. "Are you saying that humans aren't the first of their species to become guardians?" The Seeker's form brightened as it turned its attention to the former Guardian. "Noble Ash, your service has been exemplary, but you know only a small fraction of the network's true scope. There are Guardian stations in distant reaches of the galaxy, some established in secret to protect developing civilizations from threats they cannot yet comprehend. Several of these stations have been tended by human guardians for decades." The revelations were coming too fast for it to fully process. How is that possible? Humanity has only had interstellar travel for a few decades. "Time flows differently for beings of advanced consciousness," the keeper of ancient memories explained. "The humans who became guardians in distant regions were selected from different points in your species' timeline, brought forward through methods that transcend linear causality. They have been preparing the way for this moment, when humanity as a whole would be ready to accept its role as the galaxy's protector." Felt his worldview shifting in ways that were both exhilarating and terrifying. "What exactly are you expecting humanity to do?" The voice of future possibilities moved closer, its crystalline matrix shifting through colors that had no names in any human language. "A threat approaches that dwarfs anything the galaxy has faced in millions of years. Beyond the edge of our reality, entities exist that consume entire dimensions, leaving nothing but void in their wake. These devourers have begun to notice our galaxy, drawn by the increasing complexity of consciousness that has developed here." "Devourers," repeated, the word carrying implications that chilled him despite his enhanced physiology. "The current Guardian Network, for all its power and wisdom, lacks the coordination necessary to counter such a threat," the Seeker continued. "Individual stations and their guardians can protect their assigned sectors, but the Devourers require a response on a galactic scale. Only a species capable of uniting all others in common cause can organize such a defense." Keeper's sensory organs were moving in patterns that had learned indicated extreme agitation. "Are you saying that the entire galaxy is in danger?" "Not merely this galaxy," the keeper of ancient memories replied gravely. "If the Devourers successfully establish a foothold in our dimension, they will consume everything: matter, energy, consciousness itself. The very concept of existence would cease to have meaning." The weight of what the Wanderers were describing settled on like a physical pressure. He had accepted the role of guardian thinking he would be protecting a single sector of space, perhaps dealing with the occasional rogue AI or dimensional incursion. The prospect of coordinating a galaxy-wide defense against entities that consumed reality itself was beyond anything he could have imagined. "Why humans?" he asked. "What makes my species so special that you're willing to bet the survival of the galaxy on our abilities?" The three wanderers moved closer together, their crystalline forms resonating in harmony as they shared some form of collective consciousness. When they responded, it was with a single unified voice that carried the weight of eons. "In all our travels through time and space, we have never encountered a species with humanity's unique combination of empathy, adaptability, and moral courage. Other races excel in individual areas, the in wisdom, the in technological integration, the in logistics. but only humans can understand and work with all of them simultaneously. More than that, the voice continued, humans possess something that we ourselves have lost in our evolution beyond physical form, the ability to inspire others through personal sacrifice. When a human guardian gives their life to protect strangers, it creates ripples of inspiration that can motivate entire civilizations to rise above their petty conflicts and work together for the common good. Thought about his own decision to accept the guardian bond, how it had seemed like a choice between death and service, but had become something far more profound. Are you saying that my appointment here was part of some larger plan? Not a plan in the sense that you understand it, the seeker replied. Rather, a convergence of possibilities that we helped guide toward this moment. Your discovery of Station Omega-7, your decision to purchase salvage rights, your willingness to accept transformation, all of these choices were yours to make. But we ensured that the opportunity would present itself when you were ready. The implications were staggering. Realized that his entire life, all the battles he had fought and the sacrifices he had made, had been leading to this moment. The cancer that had brought him to the edge of death had been the catalyst that made him willing to accept a transformation he never would have considered otherwise. What happens now? He asked. The voice of future possibilities brightened, its crystalline form shifting into patterns that suggested hope and determination. Now, you begin the process of awakening humanity to its destiny. Other human guardians throughout the galaxy will reveal themselves and begin coordinating with established guardian stations. Your species will need to develop technologies and strategies that transcend anything currently known. How much time do we have? The Devourers move slowly by your standards, but inevitably, the Keeper of Ancient Memories replied. We estimate approximately 200 of your years before they will arrive in sufficient force to threaten our galaxy. That may seem like a long time, but preparing for such a defense will require fundamental changes in how galactic civilization operates. Ash stepped forward, his glowing eyes bright with determination. How can I help? My experience as guardian of this sector could be valuable in organizing the defense. Indeed it could, the Seeker agreed. We propose that Station Omega-7 become the coordination center for the coming mobilization. Guardian Ash's knowledge of this sector combined with Guardian's human insights could make this facility the heart of a new kind of Guardian network. Felt the station responding to the suggestion through his neural interface, systems awakening that had been dormant for. Deep within the facility's core, he sensed technologies that went far beyond anything he had yet discovered, capabilities that could indeed coordinate a galaxy-wide defense network. I accept the responsibility, said formally. But I want to understand one thing, what happens to humanity in all this? Are we destined to become some kind of galactic police force, sacrificing our own development for the sake of everyone else? The three wanderers moved closer, their forms brightening with what interpreted as approval and respect. That question demonstrates exactly why your species is suited for this role, they replied in unison. You think first of the welfare of others, but you also understand the importance of preserving what makes each civilization unique. Humanity will not sacrifice its essential nature in becoming the galaxy's protector, the voice of future possibilities continued. Instead, your species will grow into something greater than it could ever achieve in isolation. The technologies and perspectives you gain through cooperation with other races will accelerate human development in ways that would otherwise take millions of years. And after the threat is defeated, asked. If the threat is defeated, the Keeper of Ancient Memories corrected gently, humanity will have earned its place as the galaxy's senior species, not through conquest or dominance, but through service and sacrifice. Your people will become the bridge between all the scattered races, helping them reach their full potential while exploring the infinite possibilities that consciousness can achieve. The enormity of what was being offered and demanded left speechless for several moments. He looked around the Guardian chamber, seeing it now not just as his new home, but as the potential command center for the greatest struggle in galactic history. When do we start? He asked finally. The Wanderer's forms pulsed with harmonious light and felt a sense of rightness settle over him. Through his connection to the station, he could sense other Guardian facilities throughout the galaxy beginning to stir to life. Human Guardians he had never met were receiving similar revelations, and the vast network that would be needed to defend reality itself was beginning to coalesce. We start now, the Seeker replied. The first step is to fully activate Station Omega-7's dormant capabilities and establish communication with the other Guardian installations. From there, we begin the delicate process of preparing the galaxy's civilizations for what is coming, without causing the panic that could destroy them before the Devourers ever arrive. As if responding to the Wanderer's words, the station systems began activating around them. Displays that had been dark came to life, showing star charts and tactical information on a scale that encompassed the entire galaxy. Communication arrays that hadn't even known existed began reaching out across impossible distances, making contact with Guardian facilities in regions of space he had never heard of. Through his neural interface, felt the presence of other human Guardians as they came online throughout the network. They were scattered across dozens of sectors, each one a volunteer who had accepted transformation for their own reasons, but who now found themselves part of something far greater than they had ever imagined. "Welcome to your true calling, Guardian," the Wanderers said as they prepared to depart. "You sought a place to die in solitude, but instead you have found a purpose that will give meaning to centuries of life. May your service bring honor to humanity and hope to all who exist in the light of consciousness." As the Wanderer's inquiry departed Station Omega-7, stood in the Guardian chamber surrounded by displays showing the vast network he was now part of. The cancer that had brought him here was gone, replaced by enhancements that would allow him to live for centuries. The solitude he had sought had been replaced by connection to billions of beings across the galaxy. But more than that, the despair that had driven him to buy a derelict station to die in had been replaced by something he hadn't felt in years. Hope. Hope for his own future, hope for humanity's destiny, and hope that even the greatest darkness could be held back by those willing to stand guard against the night. Former Master Sergeant of the Terran Defense Corps had purchased a derelict to die in solitude. Instead, he had become Guardian, protector of a galaxy and member of the most exclusive brotherhood in the universe. The Proprietor had indeed returned to claim his station, but he had brought with him a legacy and a responsibility that would reshape the very nature of galactic civilization. Through the viewing portal, watched the stars wheel in their ancient patterns, each point of light representing systems full of life that was counting on him and his fellow Guardians to protect them from threats they couldn't even imagine. It was, he reflected, a far better fate than dying alone of cancer in a hospital bed on Earth. The real work was just beginning, but for the first time in longer than he could remember, was looking forward to tomorrow.